Hello everyone and welcome. I'm excited to kick off our presentation today on a very important topic. The title of our talk is What is Point Source Pollution? And we'll be exploring how environmental contamination happens, how we can identify its sources, and what steps we can take to regulate and reduce pollution. Over the next few slides, we'll look into different aspects of pollution, focusing on practical ways to create a healthier planet for all of us. So let's get started. Let's talk about defining point source pollution. This type of pollution refers to contamination that comes from a single, identifiable location. Unlike diffuse pollution, which comes from many scattered sources, point sources can be precisely located and monitored. For example, industrial discharge pipes releasing chemicals directly into waterways are classic instances. Similarly, factory smokestacks emitting air pollutants and drainage ditches from concentrated facilities are common examples. Because these sources are so easy to trace, environmental agencies can regulate them more effectively through permits and strict compliance standards. This ability to identify and control specific sources is crucial in managing and reducing pollution overall, fitting into our broader goal of protecting our environment. Let's take a closer look at point source versus non-point source pollution. Point source pollution comes from a single, specific location that we can easily identify and monitor. For example, factory discharge pipes or wastewater treatment plants are typical point sources. You can think of industrial smokestacks as well. They all release pollutants from a defined point. On the other hand, non-point source pollution is a bit more complex. It originates from many diffuse sources spread across large areas, making it much harder to trace back to a specific origin. Think about agricultural runoff or urban street runoff. Water flowing over fields or streets picks up pollutants and carries them into water bodies. Atmospheric deposition is another example, where pollutants from the air settle onto land or water surfaces. The key distinction here is that a factory pipe releasing chemicals directly into a river is a clear example of a point source. It's straightforward to identify and monitor. In contrast, when rainwater washes pollutants from city streets into storm drains, that's non-point source pollution, more diffuse and harder to control or regulate. Understanding this difference is crucial because it influences how we manage and address pollution. Point sources can be targeted directly, while non-point sources often require broader landscape or community-based solutions. This distinction helps us develop effective strategies to protect our water quality across different scenarios. When we look at common point sources of pollution, industrial facilities are a major contributor. These include manufacturing plants, chemical factories, oil refineries, and power stations. They typically discharge processed water, chemicals, and airborne emissions through controlled release points, but these releases can still impact our environment significantly. Next, we have municipal wastewater treatment plants. These facilities handle sewage from homes and businesses, and while they do treat the water to remove many contaminants, some nutrients and residual pollutants can still be discharged into our water bodies. It's a reminder that even treated wastewaters can pose environmental challenges. Lastly, concentrated animal feeding operations, or CAFOs, are large-scale agricultural setups where thousands of animals are housed in confined spaces. These operations produce large volumes of waste, which can be discharged through lagoon systems or drainage pipes. Managing this waste effectively is crucial because it can be a significant source of pollution if not properly controlled. All of these sources tie back to our overall theme of understanding how human activities contribute to pollution, emphasizing the importance of regulation and better practices to protect our environment. Now, let's take a closer look at the types of pollutants that come from point sources. First, we have chemical contaminants. These include volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, as well as industrial solvents, pesticides, and synthetic chemicals. These substances can stick around in the environment for a long time and tend to bioaccumulate, which means they build up in the food chain, affecting various organisms. Next, we have heavy metals. These are toxic elements like lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, and chromium. They often originate from industrial processes and can cause serious health issues, especially neurological damage and chronic conditions. It's important to understand how these metals can enter our environment and ultimately affect our health. Finally, biological pollutants include excess nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus, along with pathogens, bacteria, and microorganisms that come from sewage effluent. These biological pollutants can lead to problems like algal blooms, which deplete oxygen in water bodies, and waterborne diseases that pose significant health risks. Connecting all these points, the key takeaway is that point source pollution involves a variety of contaminants, chemical, heavy metals, and biological, that can severely impact ecosystems and human health. Recognizing these helps us understand the importance of controlling pollution at its source to protect our environment and public well-being. Now, let's delve into the environmental and health impacts of pollution. First, water contamination. When toxic discharges enter our water bodies, they harm aquatic ecosystems. This can lead to the death of fish and other aquatic organisms, disrupt food webs, and create dead zones where oxygen levels drop drastically. As a result, our drinking water sources can become unsafe for human consumption, posing serious health risks. Moving on to air quality degradation, emissions from smokestacks release pollutants like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides. These not only contribute to respiratory illnesses, asthma, and cardiovascular problems, but also form acid rain. Acid rain damages forests, crops, and even our infrastructure, impacting both the environment and our communities. Lastly, soil contamination occurs when heavy metals and persistent chemicals build up in the soil. This reduces agricultural productivity and allows toxins to enter the food chain. Contaminated land becomes unsuitable for farming or development unless costly remediation measures are taken. Overall, these impacts highlight how pollution affects not just our environment, but also our health and our economy, reinforcing the importance of addressing these issues comprehensively. Now, let's take a closer look at the regulatory frameworks that are actively tackling point source pollution. First, we have the Clean Water Act and the Clean Air Act. These are foundational pieces of federal legislation that set the standards for water and air quality across the country. They give the EPA the authority to regulate pollutant discharges, ensuring that industries and facilities meet specific environmental criteria. Next, we have permit requirements. Any facility that discharges pollutants into water sources must obtain a permit. These permits specify the maximum levels of pollutants allowed and outline the pollution control technologies that need to be in place. This creates a clear, enforceable standard for pollution management. Then there's the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES program. This system requires ongoing monitoring and reporting from dischargers, making sure they stay within the permitted limits. It's about accountability, making sure facilities are compliant and that pollution is kept in check. Finally, enforcement and penalties play a critical role. If a facility violates these standards, there can be fines, legal actions, and mandatory corrective measures. These enforcement mechanisms are essential to ensure compliance and protect our environment. Overall, these frameworks work together to regulate point source pollution effectively, which is crucial for maintaining healthy water and air quality for everyone. Let's take a moment to look at some of the success stories in pollution reduction. Over 1 billion pounds of toxic chemicals are removed from U.S. waterways every year, thanks to improved regulations and advanced treatment technologies. This is a huge achievement that directly benefits our environment and public health. In the air quality arena, we've seen about a 70% reduction in pollutant emissions since the 1970s. What's remarkable is that this progress has been made despite economic growth and increased energy use, showing how effective regulation and innovation can be. We've also been working on environmental improvements for over 50 years, building a legacy of progress through stronger laws, better technology, and industry cooperation. And the good news keeps coming. Technological advances like advanced filtration, chemical neutralization, and zero-discharge systems are continually pushing the boundaries of what's possible in pollution control. These innovations are essential for maintaining and accelerating our environmental progress into the future. Let's now look at some of the challenges we face and the road ahead in water quality management. First, emerging pollutants are a big concern. New chemical compounds like PFAS, microplastics, and pharmaceuticals are entering our waters, and they require us to update our regulations and develop new treatment methods. Additionally, legacy contamination from past discharges still poses a threat to ecosystems, reminding us that the impacts of pollution can linger long after the initial release. Next, enhanced monitoring is crucial. We need continuous surveillance using advanced sensors and real-time data systems to quickly detect violations or issues. However, many facilities still lack the infrastructure necessary for effective monitoring, which means we need to invest more in technological upgrades. Finally, sustainable development remains a balancing act. We want economic growth, but it shouldn't come at the expense of environmental health. Industry must adopt cleaner technologies, find innovative ways to reduce pollution, and do so without sacrificing competitiveness or employment opportunities. All these points tie back to our overall goal: protecting water quality now and for future generations. Addressing emerging pollutants, improving monitoring, and pursuing sustainable development are all essential steps on this journey. Now, let's talk about why understanding point source pollution really matters. When we can identify the specific sources of pollution, regulatory agencies and communities are better equipped to implement targeted solutions. This means we can focus our efforts on the actual problem areas, making our interventions more effective and cost-efficient, rather than wasting resources on broad, less precise measures. Additionally, controlling point sources is crucial for protecting human health. By reducing pollutants at their source, we help prevent health issues for communities and safeguard wildlife populations. This also helps preserve our natural resources so that future generations can enjoy clean water and healthy ecosystems. Finally, supporting sustainable communities depends heavily on effective pollution control. When we manage pollution wisely, we create cleaner, more livable environments. This balance between economic prosperity and environmental health is essential for building communities that thrive now and in the future. So, understanding and addressing point source pollution is not just about cleaner water. It's about safeguarding our health, protecting our environment, and fostering sustainable development for everyone.